Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Nelson. Happy 4th of July for all of those Americans out there that watch this show and that tune into this podcast. And if you guys don't celebrate 4th of July, boo-hoo. But aside from that, we are going to go ahead and continue to talk about basketball. And first, we are going to go, for the first time, we're actually going to cover some FIBA games because France matched up against Turkey and Greece matched up against the Dominican Republic, and they both have two slender men on the team, Victor Wembanyama and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis playing for Greece, obviously, and Victor playing for France. So we're going to talk a little bit about those games. And then in the second segment, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Bronny James's contract because I talked about it before in the previous podcast, but I didn't realize how much money he was getting paid and exactly what he was going to be doing on the Lakers. Like, I was just like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that he's going to get paid that much because he's LeBron's son, but really it's a horrible contract, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So then in the third segment, we are going to talk about LeBron's contract a little bit more because now there's some news about the Lakers trying to reduce the amount of money that they gave him, which is, I mean, why give him that much money if now you're going to try to reduce the money? I found it in an article, so I'm just gonna talk a little bit about that. And then in the fourth segment, we are going to finally be talking about Kemba Walker's retirement. He retired from basketball. He had a little message that he posted on Instagram, as well as just, talking about his career. UConn legend, if you guys don't know. We also have a special fifth segment that I like to reveal at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead, use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is GSMCPodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCPodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about some of these FIBA games. So I just want to point out that for FIBA, the rules in FIBA, they're a little bit different, right? So in FIBA, you have these tournaments and certain teams that haven't qualified for the Olympics, right? They play in this tournament, and depending on how much they get blown out, depending on how much they win by, depending on how many games they win, that determines how they qualify into the Olympics, right? So the matchup between France and Turkey while it wasn't like a legitimate matchup, it was called an exhibition match, right? So meaning that it was an exhibition match, it means that the game didn't really matter. But it was just for fun, and there was a lot of fun to be had if you were Victor Wembanyama or Team France, because there are 8 teams for the Olympics that qualified, like that have already qualified. One, the United States, obviously. The second is Canada, and I mean it makes sense. There are a lot of great Canadian basketball players out there now. I mean Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray. Then Australia, that's another team that qualified. South Sudan, that's another team that qualified already. Japan, Serbia, and Germany. They've all qualified. Now, and also I don't know if I mentioned France either. France has also qualified. So, since the French team already qualified, the matchup between France and Turkey, it didn't really affect France in any sort of way. It was just an exhibition match just for fun. However, the Dominican Republic and Greece, they didn't qualify for the Olympics yet, so that game was a little bit more serious than the matchup between Turkey and France. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up Victor Wembanyama. He was ridiculous against Turkey, and it already showed just how much of. I should also note that it wasn't just Victor Wembanyama that was a dominant presence against Turkey. There was also Rudy Gobert. And another thing that I also should bring up is that there is no such thing as 3 seconds in the paint on defense, I believe, or on offense, now that I think about it, in FIBA. The rules are very, very different, like in compared to NBA basketball rules as opposed to, FIBA basketball rules. Like, for example, one of the biggest differences and one of the things that I like is that you can be a lot more physical on the defensive side of the ball, right? So I really wonder how Joel Embiid is going to be able to play in this FIBA tournament when he's busy flailing around like I don't know what, flopping like a fish. I wonder what's going to I wonder what's going to happen to him when he doesn't get any of the calls from the referee, because let's face it, that's really the biggest difference, and or one of the big reasons why Team USA has the difficulty transitioning over to FIBA basketball is like just the physicality that the defense is allowed to play, as well as some of the other tiny rules. One of the biggest rule changes that is in FIBA but isn't in the NBA is the goaltending. So you're in NBA, when let's say you shoot the ball and it's around the rim, you can't block it while it's dangling around the rim. But in FIBA, you can. So this really makes Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert just broken, because if the ball is like, around the rim, going around the rim, since Victor is so tall, he could just effortlessly jump and just block it out as it's, a toilet bowling around the rim. And that completely changes the game, because in the NBA he can't do that, but here in FIBA he totally can, and that might throw everyone off. Now, that's also going to be just a huge problem for anyone else that's trying to attack the basket, as Turkey found out. In the 20 minutes that Victor Wembanyama was on the floor, Turkey was only able to score 10 points and was 1 for 24 from the field, which is 4%. That is really, really bad. And that is crazy defense coming in from Victor. Now, this is literally just his 20 minutes when he was on the court. And so 1 for 24 from the field when Victor was on the court, really, really bad. 10 points, 9 turnovers, and a 28 offensive rating. That is terrible. And obviously Rudy Gobert was also on the court at the same time as Victor Wembanyama, so that also helps. But really, this just shows just how much of a defensive presence Victor really is. And he is going to be, if not, he already is a Hall of Fame, a Hall of Fame level defender. And he's just going to continue adding on to that in this basketball tournament. He is going to be a serious, serious problem. Now, I talked about one Stretch Armstrong, which is Giannis. So now we will talk about the other Stretch Armstrong from Greece, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Wait, I meant Victor, pardon me. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, he played against the Dominican Republic in the FIBA tournament. Now, this is actually, a very important game for Greece and for the Dominican Republic. And the way that Giannis was playing, honestly sets my Dominicans back a couple of centuries, because he dropped 32 points, 11 for 11 from the field in 18 minutes. Like, this dude is insane. 18 minutes, 32 points, and was perfect from the field. Now, it should also be noted that Karl Anthony Towns and Al Horford weren't playing in this game. I have no idea why, but I just know that they weren't playing in this game, and that definitely affected the performance of the Dominican Republic, because let's face it, there was absolutely nobody on that team that was just tall enough or able to stop Giannis Antetokounmpo. And quite frankly, I don't think Al Horford or Karl Anthony Towns were going to be able to stop Giannis Antetokounmpo, even if they tried. But that is a ridiculous stat line to put up in 18 minutes. On top of that, this is the first time that Giannis has actually played a basketball game since his injury, because if you guys don't remember, he was injured going into the postseason with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was injured, I believe, 3 games before the postseason started and didn't play a single postseason game. So this is essentially his return to any kind of 5-on-5 basketball match, right? And he puts up 11 for 11. And like I said, this performance is going to set back my Dominicans centuries. Like, you would think he would have mercy on a third world country, but no, there is no mercy from the Greek freak. None whatsoever. So, again, it was just a crazy dominant performance coming in from Giannis, crazy dominant performance coming in from Victor Wembanyama, and it really just shows, like, that maybe the United States, they gotta stay on their toes when they go up against these two freaks of nature. And quite frankly, I am very, very scared of matching up against Victor Wembanyama. I am terrified of this man. There is not, I don't really think there's anyone that is going to be a good enough matchup for him. I mean, who would Team USA put on Victor Wembanyama? Like, who would they put? I really don't know who they would guard. I mean, you could put Kevin Durant on Victor, but at the same time, I think Victor, just being that much taller can easily back him down. Not entirely sure what the game plan is going to be trying to guard Victor, but I don't know. Maybe they're just banking on their offense, because trying to get a bucket in the paint when this guy is in the paint, that's a lot to ask for. So maybe Team USA is going to maybe rely on the three-point shot a little bit more than relying on shots in the paint, because, I mean, let's face it, trying to get shots in the paint against Victor is just not ideal. It doesn't matter who you are. I know that this team, Team USA, is full of a bunch of high flyers and a bunch of great dunkers, but even they are sometimes scared to bring the ball up or to lay the ball up when Victor is on the court. Especially, not to mention, Rudy Gobert is also going to be on the court at the same time that Victor is going to be on the court. So that's like two rim protectors that you got to worry about. So I feel like the Team USA, they're going to really rely on their three-point shot more so than they're going to rely on taking shots in the paint when going up against France and maybe even Greece, because, Giannis Antetokounmpo is a very competent defender as well. So with that, we are out of time for the first segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the second segment, where I talk about Bronny James's contract and the way it's structured and how it's very different from every other team and its structure. So I will be right back after, well, not every other team, but every other 55 overall picks contract structure. So I will be right back after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about Bronny James' contract, because I talked about it, a little bit in the previous podcast, but I didn't know all of the details, and I also didn't really think about the contract and how, it was placed, like, because he is the 55th overall pick in the draft. And, I just didn't really think, but now that I have hindsight and I had time to think, I realized just how ridiculous of a contract this really is for Bronny to sign. So, before I begin with the segment, however, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead, use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link that's displayed below the ticker on every show segment. It's the same link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCPodcast.net. And with that out of the way, let's go right ahead and talking about Bronny James and his contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. So, offspring, LeBron James is firstborn, obviously. One of the most famous second-round draft picks that the NBA has ever seen. And by far, the most paid 55th pick in NBA history. So, here's just a little bit of an understanding of exactly what kind of contract Bronny James signed. Because if you guys remember previously, Bronny James said that he wasn't going to, or his agent, I should say, said that he wasn't going to sign a two-way contract and he was only going to sign, a guaranteed contract. Now, this is actually one of the very few times where a 55th pick has that right. It is honestly very, very crazy. So now, here are the most recent number 55 picks and their contracts, right? So, Kyle Guy, he signed a two-way contract. Makes total sense. Jay Scrubb signed a two-way contract. Aaron Wiggins signed the two-way contract. Gui Santos signed a $75,000 guaranteed contract, right? So that's the guaranteed money that he's going to be making. But then in comes Bronny James. His contract is supposed to be a 4-year, $7.9 million contract. And in that contract, he's supposed to be making $4.4 million guaranteed. That is a lot of money for somebody who is the 55 overall pick. And nepotism is real in the NBA, and quite frankly, that is that's genuinely like a lot of money for any kind of second rounder in the NBA. I don't think anyone would give any kind of second rounder in the NBA that amount of money. Now, at first, I didn't really have a problem with this because I thought that Bronny was actually going to play on the Lakers. Right? I thought he was literally going to play every single game with the Lakers, and so I thought, all right, he should be able to develop. It makes total sense. But then I found out that Bronny James is, quote, expected to spend majority of his time with the G League team. So the Lakers are essentially paying a G League player, right, all of this money. And I don't think in the history of basketball, I don't think there's ever been anyone that's played on the G League that is making that much money in any kind of league, right? I don't think there's any kind of NBA player that played in the G League that is making that much money, especially now. And I think that is absolutely insane. Like, that contract and the deal that he has with the Lakers is ridiculous. And quite frankly, this doesn't really help the Lakers whatsoever. Like, at all. This doesn't help them at all because not only are they in the second apron because of LeBron's max contract that he signed, now they're also giving more money to his son, right, for playing in the G League when they could be using a lot of that money to try and get other players on the Lakers, right? So this move obviously it doesn't hurt as much as LeBron's new contract, but it still hurts the Lakers and the organization because they're paying somebody to not even be on the roster, right? Like, that's essentially what I'm getting from this. This is a huge sum of money to be paying for somebody who's going to be in the G League. Or that's what the reports are saying, that he's going to spend most of his time in the G League. Now, in the next segment, I'm going to talk about how the Lakers are trying to reduce LeBron's max contract. But again, this is a lot of money. And it really begs the question, do the Lakers, are they even trying to win anymore? Or is LeBron trying to win? Like, it doesn't really seem like they are. with this move. And with the contract that Bronny has, along with the contract that LeBron recently signed, it doesn't seem like they really want to put themselves in a good position to win. Because this is, let's face it, this puts the team in a horrible position. Especially like with the new CBA rules coming in, second apron. That's just a lot of money to be spending on one family, right? I'm sure we all can agree on that. Now, let me just go ahead and read the rest of the contract. So the first year, he's going to be getting paid $1.2 million and escalating year after year. The final year of his contract is going to be $2.48 million with a team option for 2027-2028. Now, obviously, it makes total sense. From a NBA standpoint, right? Like from a spectator standpoint, from what we've seen from all the other contracts that these players have gotten, and not only that, we just came off of Jason Tatum signing a crazy max contract of over $300 million, right? So this seems like, pocket change to them, right? I'm sure we can agree that when you look at this contract compared to all of the other major big-time free agents, it sounds like pocket change. So it might not sound like a lot of money, but for a 55 pick in the draft, that is a boatload of money considering how, all the other draft picks that were picked 55 overall, they were on two-way contracts. But somehow, some way, Bronny was able to weasel out of not needing to sign a two-way contract with the Lakers. It's like the Lakers, they brought how do I say this? They bring this upon themselves. They mess up everything themselves. I genuinely cannot name and there are people that want to argue that Cleveland's front office was just as bad or was worse than this Lakers front office and their decisions with free agency and whatnot. But let's face it, the Lakers are horrible in the front office. They're horrible with free agency, and they have horrible luck with trades. It is unbearable. You can't make this up. You genuinely cannot make this up, how bad the front office is and how they've missed on draft pick after. Well, not missed on draft pick, but they've missed on several free agent players. They missed on trades. They missed on everything. They miss everything. And being the Lakers, you'd think that they would be able to nab more players, but no, they miss everything. I don't know if it's the front office. I don't know if it's because LeBron. I don't know what it is, but it's like they just miss everything. And it's really sad how this is how the Lakers, an organization that was known for recruiting talent, just can't recruit talent outside of LeBron. It's also very infuriating as a LeBron fan, where it's like, okay, now that LeBron has signed his max, obviously he deserves the money. Now the Lakers can't really get any other free agent players or can get any other players in trades to try and sort of put the Lakers in a good position to win. They just can't do that. And speaking of LeBron, I'm going to go ahead and talk about him in the third segment and how the Lakers are reportedly trying to reduce LeBron's max contract to create cap space for free agency. So I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to continue talking about LeBron James and the James family. And, well, not really the James family, more so LeBron James. And we're going to talk about how the Lakers, they want to reduce LeBron's contract after they made the contract and signed it and let LeBron sign it. It's confusing. It's very confusing. I don't know what the Lakers are doing. I really don't. But this is coming from an article from Total Pro Sports, right? So the report is that the Los Angeles Lakers are working to reduce LeBron James's max contract to create a cap space for free agency. Now, here's question one. Why even bother trying to reduce LeBron's contract? Why did you even offer him the contract if it's too much for you? I don't know if I'm making sense. Why offer LeBron James the max if now you're trying to take away money from the contract? That doesn't make any sense to me, right? But I digress. So, according to Woj, there's still a conversation with agent Rich Paul and Lakers on James taking $1 million or so below the max to keep team below the second apron and able to keep a little more roster building flexibility, sources tell ESPN, right? Now, the Lakers, again, they're working on a strategy to free up some extra money to add essential players during free agency, if they even can land free agency players. I believe one of the players that's still on their free agency radar is going to be DeMar DeRozan. And I think that's sort of what the Lakers are trying to go grab. And I can do another segment, if you guys would want, tomorrow talking about DeMar DeRozan and whether or not he is a good fit for the Lakers and my opinions on that. I can dive in a little bit deeper on that. But genuinely, I don't know if this will work, right? But this is sort of what the Lakers are trying to do. They're looking to reduce LeBron's max and create more cap space. Now, for which free agents, I have no idea. And I swear, if it's not DeMar and it's somebody else that they're trying to get, I don't know. Bad news for the Lakers. So, on Wednesday, it was reported that James and the Lakers reached a 2-year, $104 million max contract agreement. The contract grants James a no-trade clause and a player option for the 2025 and 2026 season. If James were to sign the entire maximum contract for over $50 million, the Lakers would slightly exceed the $188.9 million second apron. Once the Lakers have used up their whole salary, they cannot take out more funds. However, according to recent reports by ESPN's Dave McMenamin, again, forgive me if I botched that last name, King James is prepared to take a pay cut to add some essential players to the roster in order to play better in the next season. Now, again, as I said before, LeBron didn't take the pay cut. It doesn't seem like he is going to take the pay cut since he signed the max. But again, if it means that they're going to sign essential players, then maybe he is going to take the pay cut. Who knows? But Perk also had some bold statements about LeBron. Now, since the Lakers, they failed to add Golden State Warriors' Klay Thompson to the roster as Klay agreed to a deal with Dallas for $50 million for 3 years. I'm sure you guys remember. Perkins didn't hold back on First Take. He says, every time he steps on the floor, LeBron James is thinking about championships. Rob Pelinka is thinking about the future, Perkins said during the latest episode of First Take. So I guess Perkins was sort of trying to take a jab at LeBron, saying that the Lakers, they're trying to build for the future, but LeBron wants to win a championship now. And quite frankly, I don't really see what the point Perkins was trying to make, because obviously, if you are LeBron and you are still dropping 28 points per game, you're going to try to win a championship. I don't know if I'm just the only crazy one that realizes that, but if you are this old and you are putting up these numbers, you have to compete to win a championship. Every single year that you have a prime LeBron, you should be competing to win a championship. Why are you trying to work towards the future? What is that going to do? What kind of draft capital do you have? You drafted Dalton Knecht. That's not going to win you a championship. LeBron's going to win you a championship. Sorry for that little rant, but it doesn't make any sense where this criticism is coming from. Because why wouldn't you try and win a championship when you have the GOAT, the greatest basketball player to ever live? Why wouldn't you try to win a championship? Doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you didn't see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers working to not win a championship when Tom Brady was on the roster. You never seen the New England Patriots, despite Tom Brady aging rapidly. You never seen them try and say, "Oh, let's work and build for the future." Da 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 da. And it's like, what? Of course they're going to try to win. LeBron wants to try and win a championship now. In case you haven't noticed, he wants to pass Michael Jordan in rings. Like, obviously. I don't understand what the criticism is here coming in from Kendrick Perkins. It boggles my mind. But, anyways, could the Lakers work out a deal with LeBron that sort of frees up some cap room for acquiring other players? Would they be able to do it? I don't really think they can, because I honestly think that this is... So let's go ahead and look at I'm actually pulling up the Lakers salary real quick. So all the players, the current salary is $190 million. The tax threshold is $171.3 million. And the first apron is $178.1 million. So that's the first apron, right? Then the second apron is $188.9 million. So they're already well over, their current salary is $190 million. They are well over the second apron, right? Now, the draft assets that they have, they can trade a maximum of 2 2029 and 2031 picks, and they can also trade 2030, but not combine with the other two. So they have several other first-round swaps as well. They have a 2026 first-round swap, 2028, 2029, 2030, and 2031 first-round swap, and they have 4 second-round picks available, right? Those are their draft assets, and the exceptions is the second round and the veteran minimum, according to this tweet that I'm looking at from Bobby Marks. He's verified, so if you guys want to go ahead and follow him on X, go right ahead. But again, they are well over the second apron, especially with this contract that LeBron just signed. And quite frankly, this is going to really, really hurt the Lakers and their chances of being able to acquire more talent. And I know I keep saying this over and over and over again, but that's genuinely what's going to happen. The Lakers are going to be back at square one every single year with this. It's going to be just another cycle with the Lakers that go over and over and over again. It's like they think they're going to hit in free agency, then they don't. Or if they do get somebody in free agency, that player is going to get overhyped by the Lakers and by the media. Then, once the season starts, the Lakers are going to be they're going to start out poorly, and then comes the criticisms. So, that new player that they got from free agency is probably going to get scapegoated. And it's going to keep going on. We're probably going to hear a lot of criticism about Bronny and how he's taking up so much money despite not playing and playing in the G League. And then there's going to be people that obviously talk down on LeBron James, saying that this is all his fault for taking the max, this, that, and the other. Then the trade deadline is going to come up, and this is when the Lakers are going to try to pursue a trade. And then, once the Lakers try and pursue a trade, there's going to be talk saying, oh, we're going to trade for this player. Oh, we're going to trade for that player. Oh, we're going to get him. We're going to get him. Back and forth with the Lakers. And then they don't land that player for whatever reason. And then it's back to square one. Oh my gosh, the Lakers are bad. Oh my gosh, the Lakers messed up. The Lakers front office, back and forth. Then the Lakers probably make the play-in. Probably. I mean, it is LeBron. They're probably going to make the play-in. And then they're going to make it to the playoffs. And then they're going to lose in the playoffs. And that's going to affect their draft capital because they have they're in the mid-tier, so they won't be able to draft really high. Like, they won't be able to get a high pick in the draft, but they'll get a mid-tier player in the draft. And then we're back at square one with LeBron, trying to see whether or not he is going to be a free agent going into his player option. So I basically just gave you guys the entire cycle of what the Lakers are going to do in the next season. So let me know in the comments how accurate you guys think it is, and we can go back to this podcast so that way, we can see just how accurate my prediction for the Lakers next season was going to be. Because let's face it, this roster is probably not going to win a championship. Now, I know I never doubt LeBron until the very end, until he's finally done, but in reality, I genuinely think that now, he's just done. I genuinely feel like this might be it for LeBron. This might be the final run for him. He might end up retiring after this season. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, just 1 year playing with his son, and I think that's it. Unless he plays pretty well. Depends. But aside from that, I don't really have any hopes for LeBron or the Lakers in this season. But again, I could be totally wrong. I hope I'm totally wrong. But that's all I have for this third segment, and those are my predictions that are going to happen for the Lakers. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I talk about Kemba Walker and his retirement, because he retired from basketball. And so, just going to talk a little bit about what he did as a player, just his impact on the game, his impact and really how much of a legend he was in college, because he is a UConn legend. So I will be right back after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be talking about Kemba Walker and his illustrious basketball career, because he ended up retiring from basketball, and he said this in a statement on, I believe it was Instagram, where I read it from. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the image of, well, other than the image of Kemba Walker right here, I'm going to pull up the image of his note that he left as he said his final goodbyes to the game of basketball. So, he said, "I want to start this by thanking God for everything he has given me. Basketball has done more for me than I could have ever imagined, and I am super thankful for the amazing journey I've had. With that, I'm here to share that I am officially retiring from the game of basketball. This has all been a dream. When I look back, I still can't believe the things I achieved in my career. I know I couldn't have made it to this point without my incredible support system around me. There are so many people to thank: my mom, dad, and entire family, my teammates who have become family, and the coaches who believed in me and brought out the best in me. Basketball will forever be a part of my life, so this isn't goodbye. I'm excited for what's next. Signed, Kemba Walker." Right? So, it's really sad to just, especially like from my standpoint, because I remember watching Kemba Walker when he was in Charlotte, as well as, the tournament when he was in UConn. Now, quite frankly, he is a UConn legend. Like, as much as, he might not really be that big in the NBA, right? He was only a 4-time All-Star, but I mean, being a 4-time All-Star is still nothing to really joke about, because there are several players who never make an All-Star appearance, but he made it 4 times, especially in a league that had so many top-level guards. I mean, like, there was John Wall, there was Kyrie Irving, there was Bradley Beal. Who else was the top guard? There was Steph Curry as well, Russell Westbrook, all in the other conference. Yeah, I understand, but still, like, these players were, and Isaiah Thomas as well. Like, he played in that same league with all of those players. And really, in my opinion, for a majority of his career, I really felt like he was rather underrated. But then I realized that, with his time on the Knicks and his time on the Celtics, that he wasn't really underrated. It's just that there was no media attention on him. So most of his good performances would be left in the dark. But also most of his bad performances would also be left in the dark. So it goes both ways. But aside from that, some of his NBA credentials, he has over 14,000 career points. And he also made a third-team All-NBA selection. And among the best in his draft class, his chances of making the Basketball Hall of Fame are very slim. Like, they only give him a 15% chance of earning the spot. But, I mean, it's really difficult to make the Basketball Hall of Fame. Now, Walker's his resume in college is definitely going to boost his chances of making it into the Basketball Hall of Fame. But one of the things that you might remember Kemba Walker for was in the Big East tournament when he was in Madison Square Garden. Yes, Madison Square Garden. He is a Madison Square Garden legend. Let me tell you about that. He hit one of the dirtiest step backs I've ever seen. Like, that step back to win the game was arguably the greatest step back in basketball history. Arguably the greatest step back, because it was like, just think about the scenario. The score was tied and the clock was winding down, and Kemba Walker was at the top of the key. He was the one calling the ISO. Everyone knew that Kemba was going to take the last shot. So he does a little tween, he does a little cross, right? And then he makes his move. And then the minute he makes his move, he does a step back. And then that step back, the defender fell to the ground. Like, straight up touched the earth, touched the court, fell to the ground, and he knocked down the shot. That was arguably one of the most iconic step backs ever, because he broke the defender and then he hit the jump shot to advance in a tournament in front of the Madison Square Garden crowd. Like, that is just legendary. There's no other word to describe it other than legendary, because you can't draw up a better, like, storybook ending. You genuinely cannot draw up a better ending. And whoever the defender was guarding Kemba Walker, that is definitely ingrained in his mind. Just the fact that he fell and gave Kemba that open shot. And it gave him the nickname Cardiac Kemba. Like, that was when that nickname was born. Or maybe it was born before that, but I have no idea. But that was when it became iconic, I guess you could say. And there was no controversy of when the ball left his hand, because he shot the ball with like 1 second left. Clear-cut bucket, it was going in. And on top of that, the UConn Huskies, they ended up winning 11 straight to end the season and end up winning the NCAA tournament. So while he might not be an NBA champion, he is an NCAA champion. And that's nothing to really scoff about. So he averaged 16 points while he was on UConn, including 23 per game in his final season. And that final season, Kemba Walker led his team to the NCAA title. He earned the consensus first-team All-American honors and was a Final Four MVP. But, Hall of Fame voters, they're rarely going to give college merits the same recognition as NBA accomplishments. For example, Christian Laettner from Duke, one of the most decorated college basketball players in the modern era, still lacks an individual spot on the Hall of Fame, though he is enshrined as a member of the 92 Olympic Dream Team, which is, what he's most iconic for, playing with Michael Jordan. So while Walker looks like, according to this article, is going to look like a long shot for the Hall of Fame at this point, it doesn't take anything away from his legendary college career. Since he is hanging it up for good, this is the perfect time to look back at some of the most iconic moments that he had with UConn. Now, obviously, he is by far in the Hall of Fame for UConn. Like, there is not a single person that goes to UConn that has no idea who Kemba Walker is. Like, not a single one. Everyone knows just how good Kemba Walker was, especially when he was on the team. And so next we also, he scored 42 against Vermont, and I'm getting a notification to free up some storage. Oh well, I'll have to do that a little bit later. But anyways, the he scored 42 against Vermont. That was one of the more iconic performances of his career on UConn. And let's see, not only that, there's also the game winner that I just mentioned earlier in the Big East tournament and his legendary NCAA tournament run. The Huskies, they were the 3 seed in the 2011 NCAA tournament. They beat Bucknell in the first round. Walker scored 33 points in the second round over Cincinnati, and then 36 against San Diego in the Sweet 16. Now, scoring that many points in a tournament game is nothing to scoff at. Like, it's very, very impressive to do such a thing. And he scored 20 points in the 65-63 win over Arizona to advance in the Final Four. And in the national semifinal against Kentucky, he recorded 18 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds in the 56-55 win over Kentucky. And then he finished off the run with a near double-double, getting 16 points and 9 rebounds in the national title game to beat Butler and secure the program's first championship since 2004. So, again, really just a legend in UConn. And while he isn't that much of a legend in the NBA, he is still, like, he's just that guy. I'm sorry, but, like, that nostalgia that I have with that shot, he is that guy. And I was really hoping that he would find some success in the NBA, because he's one of those players that deserves the success in the NBA, but it's unfortunate that he didn't find it. And it's really just, disheartening, at least in my personal opinion, because again, it's like he did so much in college, and I feel like it's only right that he does more in the NBA, but it's unfortunate that he didn't, and he wasn't able to gain any kind of greater recognition aside from being, that point guard on the Charlotte Bobcats, I guess you could say, because that's really what most people are going to know him for. And what makes this even worse for me is that, he had a very, very solid handle with the ball. Like, he is one of the best ball handlers that I've seen in obviously, there's Kyrie, there's Steph, and then there's Iverson. And then, around that area, just a little bit below, I think is Kemba Walker. Now, obviously, that's not really saying much, but when I remember a player, I'm going to remember him for, his handles and what he was able to do on the basketball court, more so than I'm going to remember, the stats and, I guess, the mediocrity, I guess you could say. And he is one of, let's face it, he's definitely one of the best ball handlers that the league has seen. And he has several ankle breakers on his resume. He has, you can't really calculate ankle breakers, I guess. But aside from that, he's just, maybe I'm just a little bit biased towards somebody like Kemba Walker because of how he was in college and just, how much I've remember that game and remember watching that step back and just how crazy of a shot that was in such a high leverage moment. But I think he's just that guy. Like, he's really just a fantastic ball handler. Obviously, like I said before, nowhere near on the level as, Kyrie or Steph or maybe even Allen Iverson. But, there aren't really that many players that, when it comes to mind and I think of handles, like, for example, Kobe Bryant. Well, when I think of Kobe Bryant, I don't really think of his handles, even though he had a fantastic handle. But when I think of Kemba Walker, I think of his handle. Like, that's really what I think about, and that's the first thing that I think about. When I think about T-Mac, I don't think about his handle of the ball. I think about his shooting and things like that. When I think of LeBron, I don't think of his handle. When I think of, give me another player, Michael Jordan, I don't think of his handle. When I think of Larry Bird, I don't think of his handle. When I think of Magic, I don't think of his handle. Like, all of these legends, when I think about them, their ball handling doesn't really come to mind as much as, Kemba Walker does. And maybe that's because, they have other things in their game that is just more recognizable than their ball handling. Like, for example, like I said, LeBron, he can overpowered. Kobe, his shot chucking. Michael Jordan, also his shot chucking. And I understand that, but still, it takes, you have to be really, really good at handling the ball if I'm going to remember you for your handle of the ball. But with that, we are out of time for this fourth segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the fifth and the final segment, which is basically just giving an update on Jontay Porter and his little situation, because there was an article and there was a tweet that came out from Yahoo that was talking about how now Jontay Porter could be charged with a felony. So I'll be giving an update about that in the next segment, so be sure to stay tuned. And we are back to the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, I'm just going to be giving a little update on Jontay Porter and his little incident with the NBA and gambling. And again, this is just going to be an update, so this might be, a little bit of a shorter segment than the rest of them. And so, according to this article, right, there are reports suggesting that Jontay Porter is going to be charged with a felony in the NBA gambling scandal after previously getting a lifetime ban. So this is clearly just way more than just, banning him from basketball. This isn't a thing that should be taken lightly. This is a really huge, criminal offense, at least according to this article, right? Because being charged with a felony is not ideal, right? So after making headlines for all of the wrong reasons in April, Jontay Porter now finds himself in further trouble as his lifetime ban ensured he'd be out of the league, but recent reports indicate that he might not be able to avoid being in prison. So, according to federal prosecutors in Brooklyn, a case has been filed against 4 men charged with scheming to cash in on tips from an NBA player. The player in question is Jontay Porter, at least according to this article, right? So according to his lawyer, Jeff Jensen, Porter had been, quote, in over his head due to a gambling addiction, end quote. But he was getting treatment and cooperating with law enforcement, revealed by the lawyer. The 4 men charged were Anmar Awade, forgive me if I botched that last name, Timothy McCormack, Mahmoud Mola, and as I mentioned in the previous podcast, Long Phi Pham, if you guys remember him, because I remember just, how long of a name that was. And they were all accused of having prior knowledge to Porter's absence in games. And according to the NBA's investigation, Porter even bet on the Raptors and faked injuries to mismatches so that bettors could profit from that knowledge. So, Jontay Porter's career earnings after being undrafted in the 2019 NBA draft. Jontay Porter got his first taste of the league with the Grizzlies. He signed in 2020, and he was given a 3-year, $5,850,000 contract. However, due to the shortened season, he only received $197,000 of that contract. In 2022, the Bucks offered him an Exhibit 10 contract, which saw him earn $1.8 million a year. He was moved to the Wisconsin Herd and the G League affiliate of the team. But then he moved to Detroit with the same contract with the Pistons, And finally, Porter received a two-way deal with the Raptors in 2023, making $411,000, and that brings his total career earnings to almost $2.7 million. So obviously, this wasn't enough for him. And last season, he appeared 25 times for the Raptors and scored 4.6 points per game in 14 minutes on average time spent on the court. After getting banned, some have gone as far as to say that he shouldn't be allowed in any other basketball league, but with the latest charges pressed against Porter, that might seem like, a real possibility. So it's like, before this was seen as like a little thing, I guess you could say, like it wasn't really that big of a deal. Or people didn't really think it was that big of a deal because, everyone thought that it was just gambling. But now it's just way bigger than that, especially since he's also going to be charged with a felony, or at least, according to this article, allegedly he will be charged with a felony for this scandal, right? This is just not good for him. This is actually horrible. And I remember before that Michael Porter Jr., Jonte Porter's brother, he was saying that he didn't believe that Jonte Porter would do such a thing or would damage his career like that. Well, oops, I guess you could say. So that's really the only thing that's really the only update that I have for you guys on this segment. It just says that he's going to be charged with a felony offense. I can't really go into much detail on that just because of reasons. I don't want to say anything that's untrue because this situation and scenario, I guess you could say, it's still unfolding, right? So really, I don't want to touch on it too much just because of the dangers that and of me being wrong, as well as let me just wipe my screen, as well as just the details not being disclosed yet. But yes, that's essentially the update. He could be charged with a felony, as well as the other accomplices that were involved in this could also be charged with a felony. And just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And with that, that is going to be the end of the podcast and the end of the show segment for today. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. It really helps the show. It makes it more interactive between myself and you guys. And that is all I have for you today on this fifth segment. I said it was going to be a shorter segment than usual, but thank you so much for tuning in. Otherwise, I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care and happy 4th of July.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.